In a state where there's already a lack of affordable housing, they're passing climate mandates on housing construction that will add nearly $25,000 to the cost of each new home built. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's going over a topic I have covered before, but I don't cover very often, and that's all of the new climate mandates on housing, especially that they're passing in, very progressive cities. Okay, so places like New York, Los Angeles, Boston, etc. They've been basically passing these climate mandates that are going to force building owners and property owners and developers to do all of this nonsense. Okay, like in California, they're talking about mandating solar panels be put on all new housing construction. In New York, they're talking about removing all natural gas connections from buildings and going to all electric. I mean, the stuff. It sounds good if you believe all this climate stuff, but then you think about what is the cost. What is the cost for the building owners? How much is it going to cost? And in the story that I'm going to cover today, they're talking about new housing construction in the state of Massachusetts, right? Now, Massachusetts, Boston, is a very expensive place. And they realized, hey, all these mandates, these climate mandates that we're passing, they're going to add significantly to the cost of new housing. Okay. They're going to make housing even less affordable. It's already extremely expensive, and it's already going to be very difficult for people to buy a home there. And they're like, well, now we're going to add, an additional 25,000 on top of that. Hey, but it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me one bit because they don't think about the unintended consequences of all this stuff. So a lot of people, when they're not able to afford a house, what are they going to do? They're going to, either continue to be renters or they're going to move out of state. Okay, that's what it really happens. You're going to move somewhere where you don't have to put up with this nonsense. Okay, and we're seeing more and more of that as people leave the very expensive states with all this bureaucracy, all this red tape, and all this nonsense, and they're heading to places, with a lot less red tape. That doesn't mean none, but that just means that they're able to live their lives and they don't have to pay out the yin yang for the privilege of living in these certain localities. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. What do you think of all these climate mandates that all these cities and states are trying to pass? Now, obviously, I have my opinions of it. Okay, I believe that a lot of it is it's not going to actually help the environment. Okay, that's what my personal belief is. I believe that a lot of it is just for show. It makes people feel good, but the truth of the matter is that the environment that they are trying to help is not, it can't be impacted in the way that they think it's going to be impacted. Okay, if they think that, by no longer having natural gas hookups, suddenly, oh well, the ocean levels will stop rising. That's not going to happen. Okay, we still have so many countries throughout the world because we live in a world, a planet here, right? So many countries throughout the world who do not care about the environment the way the United States does. Okay, and until every country is on board, there's no way that we can make the meaningful change that they supposedly want. And everything else, it's ridiculousness right now. So anyway, let's get into the article, see what it says. This article is coming from masslive.com, and it says, report shows without changes, a push to meet climate goals could add 10,000 to 23,000 to a median single-family home cost. Yeah, it's expensive. All of this stuff is expensive. It's kind of like when they talk about the electric vehicle thing, right? Electric vehicles are substantially more expensive than the gas vehicles. Okay, and so obviously, especially when we're talking about lower income people, they can't afford electric vehicles right now, and the majority of people are not upper middle class doing, making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Okay, the majority of people, they just want to be able to live their lives, and it'd be nice if they'd be able to own modest homes. But because they've added all these costs to everything, they've kind of forced these people, to not be able to afford a home. So anyway, let's read this article and see what it says. To reach its climate goals, Massachusetts needs to enact new policies to ensure that homes remain affordable for low and middle income residents, according to a new report out Tuesday from the Home Builders and Remodelers Association of Massachusetts. According to according to the report, I'm sorry, according to the report, on-site fossil fuel consumption in residential and commercial buildings made up 27% of greenhouse gas emissions in Massachusetts in 2017, mostly driven by oil and natural gas used for heating. To reach the state's goal of reaching net zero emissions by 2050, the building sector needs to cut down on energy usage. However, those cuts could result in rising home costs while the state is already in a housing crisis. So yeah, the state's in a housing crisis, and guess who's bringing these numbers to light? Okay, it is the builders, it's the developers, the people who actually know how much this stuff is going to cost, not politicians. Politicians, they're pulling numbers out of their butts. Okay, they're like, oh, this won't have any impact on costs whatsoever. Why do they talk like that? Because they want to get votes. They want to get reelected. But these builders are like, hey, we're throwing a warning out to you. This will add significantly to the price of every single home that we have to build. When it comes to housing policy, we must balance the scales in these two vital areas: affordability and climate change. Our policymakers must avoid tilting too far in one direction to the detriment of the other, said HBRAMA President Jeffrey Brim in a press release. Legislative and regulatory efforts at the state and local level should be geared toward accelerating the construction of housing that is more energy efficient, but also more equitable, more attainable, and more affordable to a larger pool of Massachusetts residents. So that was a lot of fluff in that last little statement that they made, right? But let's focus on the affordability factor. Okay, we need to make housing as affordable as possible to as many people as possible. That's basically what I'm reading from this. And when we add a bunch of climate mandates on top of the cost of housing, it makes it less affordable. It does the exact opposite of what they want. Okay, so I sometimes wonder if the push for all this climate change, climate mandate stuff is a push towards socialism, because they want to, oh, we want everyone to pollute less, so we're going to force you to live in, stacked up high in these apartment buildings, and we're going to, nobody can drive a car anymore, everybody's got to ride public transit, and basically they want the government to take over everything and you to be living in your little block. And it sounds awful. It sounds absolutely awful, and that's part of the reason that I'm not for it. Okay, if I see that, hey, a lot of the climate stuff is a push towards socialism, well, yeah, I'm going to be 100% opposed to it. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that these developers and builders are coming out here and just saying, hey, you're basically making it so that housing is so unaffordable. And it's already, we're already in a housing crisis, but you're making it so that the housing is even less affordable and less accessible to those people who need it. In 2021, Massachusetts created a specialized stretch energy code in which municipalities can opt into setting higher energy requirements for new construction. The long lifetimes of building envelopes and building heating systems mean that buildings built today may have similar energy use profiles for the next 30 to 40 years or more, the report says. It is much less expensive to build a new energy efficient home at the outset than to retrofit an existing structure. And while I agree with that, right, there has to be a balance. There has to be a balance, okay? We have to say, okay, yes, this method over here with natural gas, yes, it pollutes, right? But it makes housing so much more affordable than if we use this method over here, okay, which is all electric, all the stuff that they want to add into the housing, okay? If they are unable to work that balance out, then they're only creating a bigger housing shortage than they have even right now. According to HBRAMA's report, which was produced with researchers from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology (MIT) and Wentworth Institute of Technology, the stretch code could increase building costs by 1.8 to 3.8% for single family homes and townhouses, adding $10,000 to $23,000 to the median single family home cost, and by 2.4% for large multifamily buildings. These cost increases could in turn be passed on to renters and home buyers, pushing the median single family home out of reach for 15,000 to 33,000 households. The rising prices would particularly affect home purchasers with incomes between 80,000 and 190,000 and renters with incomes between 20,000 and 90,000. So basically what they're saying is the costs are going to particularly affect the middle class. Okay, they said home buyers with incomes between 80 and 190,000, and renters with incomes between 20 and 90,000. Okay, they're the ones who are going to have to pay more rent. They're the ones who are going to have to pay more housing costs. The people who are making more than that, they're going to be able to afford it because they've got the money. But these people in particular, they're going to be struggling to find housing that they can afford. And, you know, like I said, some of them will likely leave. Okay, they will leave the state, or they will leave the municipality, or they'll be fighting over older homes or whatever. The point is though that if they want to do this climate mandate stuff, right, they need to find a better balance between affordability and what actually could help